Hallo and welcome bij EuroWhat, aflevering 299, die verzinkt op 28 april 2020. Wij zijn twee Amerikanen die proberen wijs te worden uit het Eurovisie Songfestival. Ik ben Ben Smith en ik ben hier samen met mijn co-host Mike McComb. Hallo Mike.
Goedemorgen Ben.
In deze aflevering bespreken we Netherland op het Eurovisie Songfestival. Deeply unserious Muppet language.
Oh no. Just having horrible flashbacks of that time that we played the Eurovision board game. And I think that was my last voluntary participation in the Dutch language.
Oh man, it's just like a board game that featured multiple hertz in the in the Who Did This.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyways, so I've really been enjoying diving into the reasons why each of the nations we've been covering who are boycotting the contest has chosen to sit out this year. And also just like, it's been a nice place to see where history rhymes.
Yes.
Just sort of like what in their history sort of speaks to the moment we're currently in now. I understand why a lot of the other nations are there, like Ireland and Iceland have both, particularly in the last couple of years, been very vocal about how they feel about Palestine's status as a nation. Mm-hmm. Slovenia has had a whole laundry list of other ways that they feel underserved as a smaller participating country that we just got done talking about last episode. So, like, their reasons for sitting out feel clear, and then we have the other two. We have Spain, which is just sort of one of the big five, and we have the Netherlands, who is also up there in terms of, like, how much they contribute to participation in a given year. Just to kick us off, to remind us sort of, like, what they have said publicly about this, read a few highlights from their press release, which, like, their press release was longer than I remembered. It had, like, multiple headered sections of things, so I'm going to kind of try and cut and paste around a few of these to keep it from being too long.
And it was also my recollection that I heard of their boycotting before I heard the results from the vote. Like they had this post ready to go to the point where if there was a vote and it had gone the other way, this could have been sent by mistake.
Yeah, yes.
Like, it was like finger on the button. So, all right, here we go. Avatros has decided not to participate in the Eurovision Song Contest in 2026. That decision follows a careful process in which information was obtained from a wide range of stakeholders, from the Israeli ambassador to Amnesty International, from the EBU to various European public broadcasters, and internally from our own Association Council, Works Council, and Supervisory Board, as well as the many thousands of Eurovision fans who have sought contact. All things considered, Avatros concludes that participation under the current circumstances is incompatible with the public values that are essential to us. The decision was made in close coordination with the NPO, which respects and supports this consideration.
The other thing that I'll call out, just so that I'm not having you read, like 5 paragraphs of text, is just that they specifically kind of called out that the EBU has acknowledged that there has been political interference during the previous edition and has announced additional measures to prevent recurrence. However, these measures do not change what happened during the last edition. Today, at the general meeting, it was decided that Israel can participate. At the same time, this meeting showed that there are concerns about the neutrality and apolitical nature of the Eurovision Song Contest, and that remains great at several European broadcasters. This has been not been an easy decision, and it was not made lightly. So, like, they're thinking bigger picture. Because the Netherlands is the only one of these 5 that's won in recent years, I was briefly trying to figure out, could this be like a bottle episode of the show? Because like we covered that. Further back in history than I recall. I'm like, what do you mean that was 4 to 5 years ago?
Yeah.
No, that was like 2 years ago, max. No, it was 4 to 5 years ago. And just so some of the info is stuff we've talked about before, especially if you've been listening to our show for a while. But kind of bringing some of that stuff back and sort of connecting the dots between them gives a stronger picture of sort of what the Netherlands has contributed to Eurovision and why they might be sitting out this year as a choice. One thing I've been doing as I've been working on episodes like this entire sort of 2026 season for us, just to kind of get in the headspace and see where I want to go with stuff, is there is a YouTuber, Schlager Lucas, who has compilations of every nation's entries. It's just sort of like a handy, hey, I'm going to stick this on for like 10 to 15 minutes while I think about ideas. and just sort of have that nation's songs playing at me. The Netherlands one is long. The Netherlands one is like almost half an hour in length because they are one of the original 7 countries that participated in the contest back in 1956. They've done a lot of Eurovision. They have only been relegated twice, and other than that, they have only sat out an additional 2 times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So just like the recap video was long, and like one thing I noticed just sort of adjacent to Jongoo's entries from 2020 and 2021 is that beyond just that, they've had like a fairly they've done a good job of sort of acknowledging folks that come from areas that used to be sort of that were colonized by the Netherlands, and sort of including performers from those areas in their as their selected artists in a way that I actually found like kind of admirable. The Netherlands has a history of both when they've won, graciously declining to host, and when somebody else has graciously declined to host, stepping up and being the one to host the party. In 1959, the Netherlands wins with Een beetje.
Verliefd was je wel meer, meneer, dat weet je. Je hart kwam wel eens meer op een ideetje. Dat speet je, maar ach weet je, soms vergeet je wel een beetje gauw je eetje. Van trouw.
That is their second time winning, and it is their second time in 2 years. They had just hosted in 1958. It's a lot of money to host this for the broadcaster. They're just like, hi, we can't do that, no. And so they just sort of graciously handed over to somebody else to host. That was more of a concern in the beginning of the contest. Like with fewer contestants, that means a larger chance that you're going to need to host. And again, it's expensive. We haven't quite worked out how do we make this more affordable for everybody. Roughly a decade later, 1970, they host because they were one of the 4 nations that tied in 1969. Of those 4, 2 had to do paper, rock, scissors to see who had the honor of hosting.
Yep.
Meanwhile, everybody else is kind of mad. So just like the Netherlands kind of plays peacemaker, hosts the contest, everybody else cools down. Also introduces some lovely traditions to the contest. Like, hello, we need to pad this out so it's long enough. Here's like a beautiful like travel clip at the beginning of our nation. And then just make sure there's enough bang for everybody's television buck. We've also made postcards of all the artists so that there's just like something that we can show on screen as all the transitions are happening. All that goes well. And again, roughly a decade later. So just like a nice little like...
Very clockwork.
Yeah, just like clockwork, just like very precise. Just like every 10 years or so, something's going on, and the Netherlands is happy to step up and help. Israel wins back-to-back in 1978 and 1979, and because 1979 was a lot of money for them to do that, they're like, we don't have the budget to do this again. Spain declines, the UK declines to be the backup host, the EBU is scrambling, the Netherlands steps up. By October of 1979, the Dutch are like, yeah, we can do it. We are going to reuse the same venue the last time we hosted. We are going to reuse all the props. I find it just like very fun that like in 1970 when they host, they are doing the standard Eurovision, French, English, Dutch. By 1980, there's like, guys, we pulled this together. We are only doing this in Dutch.
Yeah.
They are a very gracious host, but like they're not doing like a ton of fluff at the beginning. Like it's just hello everybody. This is the Eurovision Song Contest, and then the next song immediately starts. I did find a video from the 1980 contest. This is like the only time I have been excited to hear Terry Wogan's voice. He does a great job of explaining the whole situation and what both why the Netherlands is hosting and just sort of like why other broadcasters might not be so excited to host.
Usually this contest is organized by the country which won the previous contest. But because Israel was the winner in 2 consecutive years, the Netherlands was granted the honor of organizing this, the 25th Eurovision Song Contest. It's a doubtful honor, really, because it costs a fortune, this jamboree. And there's many a TV executive out there tonight hoping his country doesn't win.
This is like the extent of like the pre-show. It's just
yeah.
Just no acrobats, no reprise of last year. Just like straight into the facts.
Yeah, like as jamborees go, it's a little light on content, but
yeah. The Dutch step up, but like they are trying to be very economical about it. The budget for the 1980 contest was around €725,000, which I think in like 2025 amounts is about 2.8 million.
Okay.
For comparison's sake, 2022 was around 16 million in expense. The unifying factor of 1960, 1970, and 1980 is money. Eurovision is expensive, particularly for the hosting nation. At a certain point, the EBU as a whole starts to ask, what if we went Dutch on some of the costs? The actual fees that broadcasters pay is still really hard to find information about. So a lot of the info I've got here comes from public requests for the info, like Spanish viewers sued TVE in 2016 and won, which is how we have some of the data we have. It's essentially just like a Eurovision FOIA of just like, hello, no, we need to know the numbers. In general, the EBU provides a given Eurovision's host country around 6 million euros in starter funds from the participation fees. The rest comes from the host nation and any sponsorships. If that were to be split evenly across 35 participating nations, that would be 171,000 euros per nation, which a bunch of the smaller nations probably can't afford to take out of their TV budget every year.
Yeah, like I think of Moldova in particular, where like the participation fee a couple of years ago was like equivalent to about a third of their overall television budget.
Exactly. And I think we talked last time about sort of the difference between equality and equity. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the way that total that gets sent to the host broadcaster any given year comes together is there's essentially a point value system based on the amount of reach your broadcaster has and the level of Eurovision content use. Just like, much like the Great British Bake Off is not itself great, it's Great British. Eurovision applies to a bunch of different programming offered by the EBU. It is not just the song contest.
Right.
The Big Five obviously contribute the most. In 2023, Germany paid around 473,000 euros. In comparison to Greece's 150,000. In 2022, North Macedonia paid around 40,000 euros. Couldn't find any specific info on the Netherlands, but it was reported to be around 250,000 in 2022. So that puts it towards the top of contributing nations.
Right.
Which I think one of the side conversations that always happens around how much it costs to participate is like, but if we lose, that's just wasted money. We're wasting so much money. Why are we doing this? But in terms of when all of those broadcasters come together, Germany's share of the total cost of 2022 was 407,000 euro, which feels like a lot, but that was like 3.7% of the total cost since they only contributed to the licensing fee. The closest thing to compare that to in terms of something that gets broadcast Europe-wide is European football.
Aha.
And so in 2015, the cost per minute to broadcast Eurovision was 791 euro per minute. 1 minute of a European football championship with similar viewership was somewhere around 21.6 thousand euro per minute.
Oh, wow.
And part of what does that is that Eurovision is 3 shows. Your licensing fee pays for all of those. You are getting 3 fully produced shows for your license fee, a level particularly for your Moldovas and your North Macedonias that they would not be able to produce on their own. Mm-hmm. They are getting a lot of bang for their buck. Although, like, recently there has been some concern over the fact that fees keep going up. Is like there was an increase between 2022 and 2023. Ireland's fee went up from like around 95,000 euros to 109,000 euros around that time. Although they didn't increase for 2026. Part of that appears to be that ORF as host broadcaster and the EBU seemed to understand that there was some frustration happening. And just sort of did the budgeting they needed to do. And I have another quote for you from ORF.
All right. The show will by no means suffer. Overall, it would be a certain financial burden if several broadcasters did not participate. But we expected it and took it into account in the budget. We're well budgeted.
I don't know. It's just like, it's good that they planned for it, but also like, if you guys planned for it, why didn't you make changes where that wouldn't be a problem?
Mm-hmm.
But c'est la vie. In general, though, like the way that the Netherlands has participated within Eurovision, the fact that they've been there so long, the fact that they are a person who consistently shows up and has pitched in when they've needed to pitch in, shows a real spirit of solidarity with the EBU. All of this was before they had the honor of needing to figure out how to do Eurovision in the midst of a global pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we were there. 2021, Rotterdam is still hosting. Eurovision is now a venue for how large-scale music events can work in the wake of a global pandemic. Just go listen to episode 200 that we did. It's real good. I think still some of our best work.
Yeah.
All of this to say, the Netherlands has done a lot for the EBU and Eurovision. Has Eurovision done a lot for the Netherlands in recent years? It's complicated. Unlike many of the nations we chatted about in the first part of our season, the Netherlands has never been too adversely affected by how changes to the juries scored songs or how nations get relegated. Prior to 2026, the first two times the Netherlands opted to sit out were due to the scheduling of the contest on Remembrance Day in 1985 and 1991. And they've been relegated twice, in 1995 and 2002. But it's been well within the established relegation rules of the time. There's we don't have a Slovenia situation where it's like, well, we can either send you or France, and France has given us more money. So
Right.
They had a dry spell from 2005 to 2013.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Oh, again, watching the Schlager Lucas clip, I'm like, yeah, some of these are, this is why you guys are sitting out.
Yep.
And like most nations, probably, if they had that much of a dry spell, would take a couple years off, and they didn't. The Netherlands was always there. They're always participating. They're trying a lot of different stuff, and some of it is of dubious quality. Again, why would you hire the guy who wrote the theme song to the Smurfs?
Really?
That's Ik ben verliefd.
Oh, yeah, I forgot your favorite.
Pepperidge Farm remembers. But you know what? It was a strategy. Was it a good one? No. But again, like after 2013, they bring things internally. They seem to really get a handle on how they want to present themselves and what is working for the contest. They have a couple of very close calls and then win in 2019. When we do come back in 2021, they show why I still really like Jonggu's entry, even though just like the votes were not there. Mm-hmm. But it's very much in line with what the Netherlands had been doing and just sort of really showing themselves well. And then 2024 happened.
I don't care who you are. I don't care where you come from. All we got is this moment. So let's go together.
And now that it's been a few years since the deeply chaotic 36 hours pre-Eurovision final, I feel like enough dust has settled. We have sort of pushed Angelina Mango out of the green room. She is no longer singing Imagine.
Yeah.
Again, enough dust has settled that we can kind of dissect what happened in the aftermath of 2024 and why the Netherlands might use what came out of that situation to, I think, be the big brother to Slovenia's little brother when it comes to dealing with the EBU. During 2024, the Netherlands gets through their semifinal, and then between that and the main show, Joost Klein is disqualified from the contest. From the Avotros press release about that, an incident occurred after last Thursday's performance. Against clearly made agreements, Joost was filmed when he had just gotten off stage and had to rush to the green room. At that moment, Joost repeatedly indicated that he did not want to be filmed. This wasn't respected. This led to a threatening movement from Joost towards the camera. Joost did not touch the camera woman. This incident was reported, followed by an investigation by the EBU and the police. So in the aftermath of that, Avotros consults with the EBU and offers solutions, but the EBU upholds their disqualification. The Netherlands is very Dutch about this. Like, they are very direct. They are very, like, on camera. We have one of the Dutch delegation politely telling the EBU where to shove it.
Yeah.
There's another press release where they're just like, yeah, we're not going to deliver our points. Nicky Diager, and the broadcaster pull out presenting the jury points on air. So we just sort of cut to Martin to do it from his little safe room in the arena. Mm-hmm. The Slovenian delegation immediately demands a detailed explanation for why he was disqualified. And is also like, hello, we also have this list of issues. What's up with the Slovenian audience vote? Why did you guys introduce the rest of the world vote? We see this opportunity. We have a lot of questions, but they're not the only ones who have questions. Portugal, Croatia, France, Norway, and Spain also request explanations from the EBU regarding incidents that occurred during the contest. As for Joost Klein, the incident is turned over to the Swedish police. This takes a few months to deal with, and the investigation gets closed on August 12th. The quote there from the senior prosecutor, "Today I have closed the investigation because I cannot prove that the act was capable of causing serious fear or that the man had any such intention." Anyway, so that gets closed, and the Netherlands immediately demands a meeting with the EBU, because, as far as they can tell, this is still an unfair disqualification. We will also discuss all of our other objections about the course of events behind the scenes at the song contest that we previously sent to the EBU in a comprehensive letter of objection, which to date has remained unanswered. So just like, thanks for closing the case. We still want to chat before we come back. As of September 12th of that year, confirmation of participation gets moved to November 1st for the Netherlands, so that we're opening a dialogue. We're having some chats. We would like a little additional time to confirm if we will participate or not. Things seem to go well because they have until November 1st, but they confirm their participation on October 23rd. Claude gets named in December. Things proceed as usual for 2025 and the Netherlands. So why might the Netherlands show up in solidarity with Slovenia after that contest? Slovenia still has a lot of issues with the contest that feel very relevant, and I think based on like the chat we had last episode, just sort of like, yeah, no, they have a lot of reasons to sit out. And for me, it feels like the Netherlands is like, you guys had our back, we have yours, we have some weight at the table because we are, we contribute a lot. And like, especially after everything that happened with 2025, maybe these issues aren't as resolved as we thought they were. I'm just going to show you an image that of just sort of like how I have been sort of mentally seeing this after sort of looking at all of the ways where the Netherlands has really shown up for the EBU and for Eurovision, and now is sort of maybe not getting that same sort of back. But this is my interpretation of the Netherlands and Slovenia.
Yeah, so it is two dogs, one large white dog that says, "I protect the baby," and a puppy of the same breed that is saying, "F capitalism and the corporate state." So
this is also the image I use to explain to people of my relationship as a senior engineer who is a millennial with the junior engineers below me, of just like, hello, I protect the baby.
Yes.
I will say, though, that like in terms of solidarity, even though Avotros is still sitting out, NPO has still figured out a way to air the show. And like, they're not the only ones that are airing the show, even though they're not participating. I believe Ruve is also still showing Eurovision. Yeah, Avotros is sort of in a similar situation to how I think Belgium has a couple different broadcasters under its umbrella, or Germany in particular has a lot of public broadcasters under its umbrella where they can sort of trade off who's hosting. But yeah, like NPO this year was like, yeah, no, we support Avotros's decision to not participate. We are going to figure out how we can still air that, just because this is like a news program. This is something that like we should publicly air.
Right.
But yeah, like that is sort of like where I came to on this, is just sort of in terms of money, is just sort of the going Dutch of it all, of just sort of like, where do those fees come from? How much does that contribute? And just sort of like, why would the Netherlands sort of step into this group of five? And I think a lot of it is just sort of being a good partner. Like, they went through what felt like the correct process for what happened in 2024 and thought things were resolved. And now it feels like there are still open issues to be discussed. Again, being a good partner with the nations who feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And like using their leverage to be the best partner that they can be.
Exactly. I think having having in the mix, not just smaller nations, but nations that we have done Eurovision since 1956. That just sort of a seniority that means a lot.
Yeah.
And just sort of a level of contribution that means a lot. Because like, I think if you have a participant who's like a longtime member going, I'm not gonna come this year, it's worth going, okay, but why not? All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the EuroWhat. Thanks for listening. The EuroWhat podcast is hosted by Ben Smith, that's me, and Mike McComb.
That's me. You can find our full archive of episodes on our website at EuroWhat.com. For our free newsletter and more info about the EuroWhat AV Club bonus podcast, check us out at patreon.com/EuroWhat.
Next time on the EuroWhat, Spain is the last country boycotting this year's Eurovision, and we will explore how their early history at the contest may have informed that decision.